The first Memorial Day was celebrated in Charleston, South Carolina on May 1st, 1865. Historian David Blight uncovered archives truths about this historic day and the contributions of new freed persons. The Civil War had ended, and Charleston Confederates evacuated the city in February 1865. Destruction was everywhere: war-torn streets and abandoned buildings. It appeared that no hope could be found in this debris. But there was hope in Charleston. Residents consisted mostly of freed persons, but also missionaries and Union troops, black and white. They set their sights on rebuilding Charleston into a more equitable city. With freedom came a sense of hope, but also gratitude and celebrations of prayers answered. Blacks came together to build lives, businesses, churches, and schools. But in the midst of their planning, there was a wrong that needed to be corrected. During the final months of the war, an outdoor Confederate prison camp was set up on the grounds of the Washington Race Course. Over 250 prisoners died there, many from diseases, exposure, and inadequate care. Their bodies had been dumped into a mass grave behind the grandstand. This did not set well with the grateful freed persons. Historian David Blight wrote in Race and Reunion, The Civil War in American Memory, that in the days leading up to May 1st, dozens of black residents of Charleston moved the bodies of these soldiers to a cemetery and buried them in neat rows. They erected a 10-foot-tall white fence around them, and on an archway they painted the words, Martyrs of the Race Course. On May 1st, a grand celebration was held to show their thanks to the soldiers who died for the cause of freedom. Seems that every black person in Charleston turned out, a crowd of 10,000 people. Blight found articles about the event in the Charleston Daily Courier and the New York Tribune. The festivities began around 9 a.m., opening with 3,000 black school children who led the crowd around the racetrack. They carried flowers and sang the Union song, John Brown's Body. They were followed by adults representing aid societies for freed black men and women. James Redpath, the white director of freedmen education in the region, organized about 30 speeches by Union officers, missionaries, and black ministers. Black pastors delivered sermons or read scriptures. They led attendees in prayer, and everybody sang spirituals. Participants further showed their patriotism by singing America and We'll Rally Around the Flag and the Star-Spangled Banner. In the afternoon, 3 white and black Union regiments marched around the graves and staged a drill. The New York Tribune described the tribute as a procession of friends and mourners as South Carolina and the United States never saw before. The grave sites looked like a, quote, one mass of flowers, and the breeze wafted the sweet perfumes from them, and tears of joy were shed. In 1868, General John A. Logan, president of a Union Army veterans group, urged Americans to decorate the graves of the fallen with flowers on May 30th of that year. The ceremony took place in Arlington National Cemetery, and it had been considered the first official Memorial Day celebration. Memorial Day became a national holiday 2 decades later in 1889, and it took a century before it moved in 1968 to the last Monday of May. Blight wrote in Race and Reunion, this tribute gave birth to an American tradition. The war was over, and Memorial Day had been founded by African Americans in a ritual of remembrance and consecration. Hear his words about that day.
10,000 people marched around the old Planters race course, and the oval is still there in a park. But it said it was led by some 2,000 or 3,000 black children carrying armloads of roses and flowers and singing John Brown's Body, followed by black women, black men, and then Union troops. And they marched around the course, and then they gathered in this cemetery that had been created by local black workmen, as many as could fit into the cemetery. And they heard the preaching from 5 black ministers, according to this article, and a small black children's choir sang the national anthem, America the Beautiful, and 3 or 4 spirituals. After this ceremony, broke up and went back into the infield of the old racetrack and did what most of us do on Memorial Day. They had picnics, they had a speaker stand with speeches. The children ran around. But back around the graveyard, they had built a fence all the way around it, and they whitewashed the fence, and they had an archway, entryway, and over the archway they painted the inscription, Martyrs of the Racecourse. These were the freed people of Charleston paying tribute to the Union dead. And it was their way of declaring the meaning of the war. That's the first Memorial Day. All the other places that claim to be the sites, and there are numerous towns and cities, south and north, that claim to be the place where Memorial Day had its origins in this kind of ritual, claimed 1866.